The $19.5 million sale that just closed, with another sale on the books coming up, and that's of the iconic Florida Big Cat Rescue. The same Florida Big Cat Rescue of Carole Baskin, of Tiger King. So if you remember back to COVID 2020, you remember the Tiger King? Well, Carole Baskin, this was her Big Cat Rescue, the Big Cat Refuge. Now, the first question on so many people's minds, wait a minute, if they just sold off this parcel here, what happened to the kitties? Well, good news for you, they've been relocated, so they went on a trip somehow, some way, I don't know the details, but to somewhere in Arkansas. So if you want to still see those cats, you can, somewhere in Arkansas at the new rescue, where, according to the article, they're actually able to build bigger facilities for the cats, so that way it's actually better suited for them, because where they were here, in this, all these colored parcels here, this is all part of that Big Cat Rescue. And the sale is essentially these two key pieces of it right here. So the first one, this is the one that just closed that we're going to be talking about today the most, because we're going to do some calculations on this. We're going to be doing calculations from what commission could have been for this property to the different amounts of units that are going to be developed. I went ahead and pulled the stats from the article here so we could break that down and get an understanding from development, because I know that's also a popular concept with a lot of our videos, in addition to popular questions on the state exam if you're studying for your exam. And they've got this other parcel over here, ultimately making up about 11 acres with a combination of something else here to put in additional apartment units. So we've got townhomes and apartments that are going to be going in where the Big Cat Rescue was formerly. Now, let me know in the comments if this was a place you had been to in the past. I never actually made it here my entire life living in Tampa. Never have gone to the Big Cat Rescue, but I had seen it on Tiger King, so that was cool. That was a big moment for Tampa, and you can already see there's actually quite a bit of development already around in this area here. A lot of, you know, this being a wildlife refuge, it was really like right in the middle of the city here. So a lot of, you know, and also, you know, if I'm living here, and maybe even like right over here, you know, I'm wondering what happens if one of these cats escapes. You know, I probably wouldn't live over here. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they got fences and all that, but we've all seen Jurassic Park before, and we know what could go wrong. So the cats are now safely in Arkansas. But let's talk about this development first. And let's actually write the commission. Let's do some commission math on this $19.5 million here. So that was the sale price. Now, ultimately, what the commission is a private confidential agreement between the brokers and the client. Now, this ultimately was a brokered deal, so this was actually brokered. So there were commissions involved, unless these brokers were working for free, which for a $20 million sale, I doubt it, but who knows what Carole Baskin might have had on them. Anyway, so let's say if this was a 6% commission. Now, could the commission be more than that? Yes. Could it be less than that? Yes. It's a negotiable amount. But let's say it was 6%. We're going to pull out our handy Tampa School of Real Estate calculator. You can make this yours, beeps included, on the campus store. I think we got these for like $10 or something like that. But we're going to go ahead and punch in here $19.5 million. I like this calculator because it's got the 1,000 separators, but just so you could see at home, we'll pull up the calculator on the screen too. Where is it? Let's get the calculator on the screen in 3, 2, and 1. And there's a calculator. And so again, that calculation is 19.5 million times, we've got 6% we're calculating here. And that's going to be $1,170,000. Now, if you represent both sides of the sale, that might be what your commission is. But let's say you're offering, we'll call it half of this commission, 3%, as a cooperative commission. So what that means is essentially that this $1,170,000, when split into halves, into two, would give us $585,000 in gross commission per side of the deal. So roughly about a little over $500,000 for a 3% commission. Now, could the commission rate been less than that? Yes, maybe it was only even 1%. But even at 1%, you're still looking at almost $200,000 in commission. So definitely a big payday, whatever that might have been. You know, it could have even been a flat fee, but for a property valued at this much, especially when you've got something as special purpose as development that we're talking about here, that's going to really need professional guidance, and not even just guidance in going through the transaction, but proper marketing, being able to help developers see what is possible in this property, for understanding the market that it's in, the neighborhood that it's in. And you know, there's actually in the Tampa area, there's fewer and fewer parcels that are available for development, and that's where you see markets like Lakeland growing rapidly, because it's being sandwiched right in between Orlando and the Tampa markets, and it's growing right alongside of that just because they have so much more raw land than, say, the Tampa Bay area here. But there's still plenty of land, because within these 55 acres, 56 is actually the portion of it that they are developing, these 280 townhomes on. So let's do some math on this here. Let's figure this out in terms of square feet. Now, townhouses, these are usually going to all have a footprint, essentially. They're all going to have a portion of land that they sit on, as opposed to condos or apartments where they might be stacked on top of each other. And we've got the apartment calculation for the 11 acres on here as well, so we'll go into that today. But let's talk about these 56 acres here. Now, let's go ahead and just quickly turn this into square feet. So the key number you want to remember for square feet in an acre, and you will use this throughout your real estate career. This is one thing out of everything that you learn that you will use. And yes, you could always Google it if you forget, but why would you need to even take a second Googling it or asking Siri when you could just remember 4 ladies going 35 and a 60? So imagine, you know, 4 little old ladies going out for afternoon tea or something like that, and, you know, they're hanging on to the steering wheel like this, can barely see over, and because, you know, it's hard for them to see, and they want to make sure they got time to hit the brakes and all that, they're only going 35 in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. So that's the thing that always stuck with me and why I remember it today. There's a bunch of other ways you could remember that, but I have yet to find one that is more memorable than the 4 little old ladies going 35 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour zone. You know, making us all a safer place, supposedly. We're not here to debate traffic speeds. We do need to remember 43,560, though. So let's do that math here. And to save us some quick time, we'll just do that on this handy calculator, because I could actually hit the buttons and hear the beep instead of wondering whether or not I hit this giant touchscreen right. So 43,560 times 56 acres is going to give us 2,439,360 square feet. Now, let's say that half of this is going to be for roads, for maybe even a clubhouse, a community pool, things like that, a gate, perimeter fencing, landscaping, water features, so on and so forth. Maybe it's going to be less than that. Maybe it's going to be more than that. But let's just go with half for now. So let's say 50% is what is going to be usable, developable. Maybe I should say, what we could actually put lots on. For lots for the townhouses. So out of that 2,439,360, we're going to go ahead and multiply that by 50%, and that is going to give us 1,219,680. 1,219,680, and not dollars. I don't know why I'm putting a dollar sign on this here. We're not dealing with dollars yet. We're still in square feet. So if we're trying to put 280 townhouses on this here, let's go ahead and now divide this by 280 and see if let's say, again, this math of half of it being for actual townhouses, for lots for townhouses, and we're going to divide this out now by 280. And that's going to give you 4,356. 4,356 square square feet. Let's say that this townhouse is maybe 20 feet wide. Why do I say 20 feet wide? Well, if we're talking a two-car garage, that's usually 20 feet wide. So let's go ahead and divide this now by 20. And that's going to give us 217. So what that means, so 217 by 20, if these are 20-foot lots here, that means it could go back 217 feet, which is huge because it would be 10 times deeper than that. But also you have to factor in the yard space. And you know what? Up here, they might be using even less of this for the actual townhouses, because if we actually go back to this map up here, I mean, it looks like a big giant part of this is water. And if they're keeping that water feature, I mean, roughly just looking at the map here, that's almost half of this as is. But, you know, maybe it's a great water feature. Maybe they'll be able to build some townhouses along it, and those ones they could sell for more money because they border this nice little reservoir. Maybe they're going to redevelop that altogether. Maybe they're going to close off portions of it. Who knows how they're going to actually do this here. But I want to get down to how they came up with these 280 townhouses here, because this is huge. 20 by 217 gives us 4,340. Yeah, so that would be the square foot that we have allocated for lots. But let's go ahead and do some math here, and let's say this is maybe only 30% available for lots. Because again, let's say that water takes up a big portion. Now we need driveways, we need streets, maybe there is still a park or community center that's going in there to help raise up the property values on this here. So let's take that 2 million, right up here, 2,439,360, and we're going to multiply that now by just 30%. And so at 30%, that's going to only give us 731,808 square feet to develop on. Now again, we're doing this across 280 units. So we'll divide that by 280, and that gives us 2,613.6 square feet available per unit. And again, we're going to keep that same 20 feet as our width of these units. So we divide that by 20, and that's going to give us 130. Which, you know, maybe there is a front yard and a backyard portion of this here. You have a front door with some steps, maybe a little garden area, some little landscaping, and then maybe there's a fenced-in backyard area. And now that's actually a lot more realistic here, because you can see it's going to be somewhere in this range. Maybe they are building these slightly wider than 20 feet, but not by much, most likely. Because, again, there's going to be that garage. Now, maybe they're putting stairs next to the garage, so it is going to be a little bit wider, potentially. Who knows? I've seen them where they've actually gone narrower. If we're talking single-car units here, that's going to give us even more potential for even more townhouses. And that's what you'll even see sometimes in a development like this. They might not all be identical 20-unit garages. Maybe there's so many units that they're going to do with only a width of, say, 15 feet, just a single-car garage. And now that extra 5 feet that they've got in here from that 20 feet measurement there, that gives a lot more room across multiple units. But also at the same time, most people have 2 cars, because most households are at least 2-car households. Yes, there are 1-car households, but when we're talking about potential market for townhouses, usually you want to have room for 2 cars. Even if it is just a 1-car thing and maybe you just drive through and there's 2 cars together in that. So a lot of different ways they could come up with this, but this would essentially be the basics of how many lots you could build. And there's also a minimum lot size. So maybe even right here at the 4,356, maybe that's already below the minimum lot size, because maybe the minimum lot size has to be at least 5,000 instead of 2,600. And so if we've got a minimum lot size of 5,000, or if we're going to be talking single-family homes, we might be talking minimum lot size, maybe even closer to 10,000. Depending on the size of the home, depending on the area, it all comes down to the zoning and what is required. And it's going to be interesting to see what this 280 townhomes here eventually looks like and how that turns out and how they really transform this into that 208 townhome community. Now, I do also want to spend a moment here talking about over here, these 11 acres that are ultimately going to make up 300 apartments. So now we're dealing with significantly less land. We're talking about only 11 acres versus the development was 56. 56 acres, and they're producing 280 townhomes. 11 acres, and they're producing 300 apartments. Now, these apartments are definitely going to be smaller than the townhomes, but the advantage that apartments as well as condos have in terms of development is being able to have vertical construction, as opposed to with townhouses, there's no one above you. Whereas condos and apartments, there may be somebody above you unless you're on the top floor. So this could be broken up into one of few ways. It's going to probably be at least 3 stories. 3 stories, 3 levels. And so if it's 3, we're going to do some math on a couple different numbers here. So 3, real simple, that's going to be 100 per floor. But I've seen a lot more units recently that aren't just 4, but also 5 levels. So if we've got 300 units, and we're going to divide out, not 3,000, 300, by 4 levels, that's now 75 per floor. And if we're going to do this across 5 levels, so 300 units divided by 5, and that's going to be 60 a floor. And maybe it even goes to 6 floors. You know, really depending on the zoning in the area will determine what the height is. Airports have a big factor in that, and that's one of the things that has held back a lot of areas in Tampa, because we have quite a few airports in the Tampa Bay area that require certain height clearances for planes to be able to take off and land in usually multiple directions. And so that usually limits how tall some of these buildings can go, but it definitely can be. You know, our tallest apartment building in Tampa, I believe, is actually 34 floors. So, you know, that we're only talking, you could have 300 units now across 34 floors with 8 or 9 units per floor versus 60, which we'll obviously probably have to split up into multiple buildings. Let's say if we did 6 floors, so 300 divided by 6, that'd be 50 a floor. And so, again, the more vertical you can go, the more that's going to save you, because this is going to have double the footprint of this. See how those are correlated right there? And that makes sense when we look at the numbers here, because, yeah, double the amount of floors is going to be half the amount of units per floor. But now half the amount of units per floor is going to give you a lot more leeway of where you could actually build. So let's say we are going to go with this option for now. Let's look at this option. Let's explore this further. And we've got 50 units that have to go per floor. And let's say that we could maybe build one of these with, we'll say 25. We could say the most we could do is about, like, say, 25, maybe 30 units a floor in a building. So if we're doing 25, that's going to be 2 buildings. And so now that makes this really easy to accomplish, because what that development would essentially look like then, to hit those 300 units, if we were able to do 2 buildings that have a footprint of 25 units. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually the bigger floors should actually have more ceiling space typically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we got 6 floors. We'll do that right on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, put in an extra floor on this one. Let's take that back. There we go. Club level, amenity level, who knows? But say again that we could get 25 units on each of these floors here. This is going to be 150. This is going to be another 150. Now you've got 300 units. So if you need to have the footprint there as, say, 2 buildings, but let's say we have room for more buildings, and let's say We also, because this is more of a residentially zoned area, let's do this here. Let's say that the tallest they could be is 3 stories. And let's actually... yeah, we'll put it at 10. Just to really expand the footprint a lot. We're going to put 10 units of floor. So that means we need to have 10 buildings. So you can see how quickly that could rapidly change from our much taller 2 buildings with 25 units of floor into now 10 buildings. And each of these 10 buildings having 3 floors. And there we go. And so again, each of these having 10 units. So 10, 10, 10. So that's 30. 30 times 10 of these buildings gives us those 300 units. But now you could see we need a lot more footprint. Yes, we're doing smaller, because typically if you're doing lower construction, it doesn't matter as much, whereas when you're doing higher, taller construction, that's usually going to have a larger footprint. You very rarely see very, very skinny buildings that are very tall. They're usually wider, they usually take up a larger footprint, to a certain degree at least. And so what this is actually going to turn out to look like is going to be very interesting. But the fact that they're doing even more units of apartments on only 11 acres, on basically 20% of the space that they're developing out, 280 townhomes, that's going to be interesting to see the difference, the contrast between these different communities and what those actually will end up look like. And ultimately, this is just another, because this just recently closed, and they just acquired the land for this right here. So this just recently closed. The land was just acquired, and this actually hasn't even closed yet for those apartments. Those are supposed to be closing soon for those 300 apartments. I think they said by the end of the week, and that article just came out this week. So this is breaking news. This is something that maybe this is the first time that you're hearing about it. You know, again, if you've got some sort of memory from the Big Cat Rescue, you know, keep that alive in the comments. Put that in the chat there. Maybe you went there as a kid, maybe as an adult, maybe you volunteered there. I know a lot of people that have stories that have been to the Big Cat Rescue there. But again, good to know that the cats are now safe in Arkansas in even bigger and better facilities than what will soon be townhouses and apartments here in the Tampa Bay area. But another sign of the market, another sign that developers are still going, that developers are still building, that there is still more to come, that developers still have faith in the Tampa real estate market, and they do expect this market to grow, that they don't see an excess of supply, and that's why they do continue to build and develop new properties, because there is growing demand for the Tampa Bay area, despite what some opinions may think on that. If you've got a different opinion, let us know in the comments there. Would love to hear your take on all of this. But otherwise, that's about all the time we've got for today. So thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. We'll be back on Friday for State of Real Estate. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you on Friday for State of Real Estate.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.